I want to welcome you all here. It's very exciting to be here for me and to have facilitated this all happening. And we're going to present on 2 conferences. And my mother passed away on August 6th, and I decided to grapple with it by going to 2 conferences on death and to learn more. And what I came back with was very exciting. One was the Final Transition Conference that I shared with Katie, who will also be presenting. And then the other one, which I shared with Alan and Phil and Ed and James too, was on afterlife communication. So we have this whole wonderful possibility. And we did in our last email say that we may extend to 10:30, and so if you have to leave at 10, go with our blessings. But we really want to give you a really full, rich program because it's really rich. We even had to pick and choose, okay? So, so the way that we're organizing this thing is Katie's going to begin, and that's with, all right, what do you do? Let's say you've been in a major accident, you're in the ICU unit. You know, what do? You have to heal, or you've got a major disease happening. How can you set up care for yourselves? And what are the questions as you begin to approach the end of your life? Okay, so that's going to be the first thing you're going to do. Then I'm going to present on what is the medical really data that we have that begins to show for us that consciousness uses the brain as a tool. And when the brain dissolves, it disintegrates, consciousness still remains. What is the data, the actual scientific data that we can bring forward about that? Okay? And then we're going to move on to the Afterlife Communication Conference. Alan is going to present on Gary Schwartz, who's done some very fascinating work in afterlife and in mediumship research. And then also I'm going to present on Jamie Turndorf, who has designed a system, as she's a clinical psychologist who lost her husband after 27 years and was in relationship work. And so she has now developed strategies to train people to be in active communication with those they've loved who have died. And to be able to receive messages, to be able to look at signs and interpret them, and the kind of thing that we have as a possibility in life now is, can we live on this planet richer and fuller lives with using the guidance from those above? And do we assist them in their fuller evolution? If we also have to, or they have to heal, they have to look at what they did, let's say. And so I'm going to be presenting on her system, which sounds really worthwhile. And then Phil, if we have time, will also present on the psychic lawyer.
What is that?
Well, he's a man named what is it again? You don't remember his name? That's ridiculous.
But he misses his scientific.
Well, he presented at the conference, and he was on MSNBC being interviewed, and so he uses his mediumship skills in dealing with murders and
it's really about showing the quality of speaker and how qualified and how much credentials and education. I was thinking that maybe over the years I've been going to these conferences that maybe these are kind of airy-fairy people, but these are incredible human beings with a lot of scientific and credentials. So
yeah, what do you want to share?
So,
good.
Okay. So what I'm going to go into is what it's like to go away on a trip, which I did this summer, and have your companion die after 3 weeks traveling with her, and then how I've been able to integrate that, how my heart has been breaking open, and how I've been integrating this experience within the Life in the Afterlife conference and the rest of everyday life.
All right, so with that,
Right
we
with
should
that.
begin our journey, okay?
All right, great.
All right, so you'll take about, not more than half an hour.
And we usually, while they're setting up, so we can just put it in perspective, we usually run a monthly session called Life, Near Death, Death and Beyond that Wendy, Laura's sister, and I co-facilitate.
Thank you.
But we aren't needed tonight because these five are gonna share what they're gonna share. And we're only talking about death and beyond this time, not the rest, so. They're,
Yeah, and
That's all.
thank you, Louis.
Of course.
And you've been such a wonderful host.
and I will
such a
sit down
source-
now and be a wonderful
source of
attendant.
support and energetic encouragement. Thank
We
you.
all are, thanks.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm really glad you're all here, and very excited to share with you what I learned at the conference. I'm only going to be sharing about 2 of the speakers, but they were very impactful for me. And I want to do a little plug right now for the conference, the Final Transitions Conference, which will take place next year. And this particular conference was a model for all the conferences to come in the future. What the coordinator did is he chose the creme de la creme of all the speakers, people that are clinicians, researchers, medical doctors, scientists. And what they did is they presented their data that they'd been acquiring for decades and presented it to us. And so it was very compelling for us to see that consciousness exists after death. So I was thrilled to be a part of it. And I'm going to start talking about Sheila Warnock. She's the lady who wrote this book, Share the Care, and she had the experience of being a caregiver in 3 different caregiving situations. And so what happened is that she wanted to document and develop a system for caregiving, which is what she did, because she saw this crying need for doing the executive function of setting up a caregiver program that everybody could follow. So she, in her books and on the website that she has forms that you can download. I've got them over there, or at least a sampling of them. And so you can basically take care of anybody. So it is an amazing system, and having been a caregiver, having been a care receiver, I'm relieved to have a system that I know in the future I'm going to end up using. So for the uninitiated, a lot of times when we think caregiver and we really don't know what that means, I mean, my first thought is, oh my God, I'm going to be changing bedpans.
Right.
No, not me. And as it turns out, you won't be changing any bedpans. There are a lot of different roles that you can play. So one of the roles is where you could clean somebody's house. Now, a lot of you might be going, oh my God, I didn't sign up for this. Clean somebody's house, look at my own, no way. But what's true is that there are people that love to clean. I mean, it's true, you know, people that love to clean. I mean, I could maybe wrap my head around it and, oh no, I can't. No, I can't wrap my head around loving to clean. But the whole idea with caregiving is that you are devoted to the person that you're caring for. And it is a gift to them. And you know that they need it desperately. And when you give it, your heart is full. And so consequently, you can clean somebody's house. It's amazing. So, or you could be a companion. the in-depth conversations that you would have as a companion, taking people to appointments, can be a real thrill, a deepening of your intimacy and your relationship with that person. And I've experienced it and know it. Cooking. Some people love to cook. And boy, the people who need to have meals provided, it is a real service. Researcher. You can figure out options for people about their medical care, about facilities that they might get into. You can be a star shopper. There's some people that really know their stores, and they know exactly where to go to get whatever it is that the recipient needs. Or you can be an archivist historian. Let's say you want to put together, or they want you to put together a scrapbook, or interview them and be audio taped. There's a lot of possibilities, and it can ultimately move into the celebration of life party, which can happen before you die or after you die. So I have a friend in the room who is planning her pre-death celebration of life, which I really think is great.
80th birthday and pre-mortem celebration.
Yes. All right. So, a couple of examples from my life. I had my terminally ill mother come and live with me. And because I was the only one that was a family member in the area, I figured it was all on my shoulders. That I was the sole responsible party, and I worked myself to exhaustion and to burnout. And I didn't know that there was any other way. And it never even occurred to me to ask anybody to help me with this. But thankfully, there was a follow-up story. I was having neck surgery, and my surgeon, who I had just met that day, said to me, okay, you've got all the conditions, that preconditions for surgery, so I want you on my operating table in 4 days. You will not be able to work for a month. You will not be able to drive. You won't even be able to be in a car because of the jostling from the neck. You won't be able to lift more than 5 pounds, and you'll be in a neck brace, and you will only be able to move your head like this. And so I was in shock. I didn't even have an opportunity to really process what was going on. And I called a good friend of mine, Betty, and she understood what I was facing. And she said, give me your address book, I'll get you some help. And she did. And when I got out of the hospital, I had 2 shifts every day of people coming and taking care of me and taking care of all my needs. And it was really a huge relief. I mean, I didn't even realize, it was so seamless, how important it was. And then I really got that it was an act of love, and love in action for me. So that's partially why I was inspired to come tonight and talk to you about this particular method. Because in our society, we used to have barn raisings, communities coming together to take care of people that were in need. Now we have agencies, we have insurance companies, everything is monetized. And so what's happening is that there are gaps. Now, medical insurance doesn't cover a lot of the things that I was mentioning just a few minutes ago. So what's the person to do? Particularly, what's the person who's living alone to do with no family in the area? And there's more and more of our friends that are having that situation. Also, retirees. We are going to have 7.5 million more retirees, baby boomers retiring, coming up in 10 years or less. So we've got a problem, and the Sheila Warnock, the creator of this system, was saying, look, this is our answer. We need to get on board, everybody start giving 2 hours a week, you know, get the system going, get people familiar with it, and it will happen. So we'll be more prepared when the time comes. So, let's see. All right. A couple of principles that are embedded in this system that are really important to share. A lot of times people don't even want to enroll themselves in this type of system because they don't want to ask for care. So it never even happens for them. Particularly men. Men is like, oh no, I don't need anything. I'm not going to ask for help or directions or anything like that. So what happens is that when somebody does take the initiative and get the address book and talk to them about not only the people that are in their lives, but other people that they've had glancing connection with. Like, for instance, think of the 100 people that are on your job list, people that you should contact when you need a job. I mean, that's what you do to get creative, to have enough people for your caregivers. So, but then the first meeting of the caregiver group happens, and you are feeling empowered. You've got this whole group of people, and they make commitments. They learn about your needs, and they make commitments for when they're going to show up. And it's incredibly inspiring, and there's a great camaraderie. So it's a thrill to be part of it, and to know that you're part of a team, and you're part of a team that's making a difference. And that's the key thing. So the other thing that's important about this, about the caregiver groups, is the caregivers benefit from the system. That means that they are enriched. They find value. And when this shows, the care receiver then goes, oh, I don't have to keep this all on my head, that they're taking their time out of their lives. I can actually be free to receive this care in good conscience. And what happens is with the groups, they stay together, particularly church groups. They stay for care receiver after care receiver. They are so excited and empowered with the actions that they're able to take to help people and make a difference. And then the last point is caregivers only give what they want to give, because all the tasks are spread out among so many different people. You don't have to really do that much. And what you do, you want to do. You're happy with doing. So I really recommend that you go to sharethecare.org and check it out. And, okay. So that's Sheila Warnock. Now, I'm going to talk about...
Katie, can I just mention something?
Yeah.
Something that's been coming up in my life, and maybe in some of yours, is how many of the friends that we make friends with do we really go on this level? Am I going to really be there for you? Are you going to really be there for me? You know, what is really necessary? I mean, because we lived in a sort of broken nuclear family, you know, society, and not so much of a village or community consciousness. And the person who does the central organizing and deals with, you know, people who can't make it on a certain week and who's going to substitute and all this is a real act of love.
Mm-hmm.
And so I invite each of you to think, who would do that act of love for me? Who would provide me 5 hours of organizing help per week? to organize this larger network, you know,
Mhm,
making
mhm.
sure everybody's got their tasks, they know if they're trained in it, they know where to do it in the house, you know, just on a management level. And so, you know, as I get older, I start thinking more this way, you know, about how to create a supportive network. That's all.
Mhm.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, anybody have any comments about the share the care method or anything along those lines? Joan?
In the community where I live, a man died last month, and it was 3 days before somebody found him, and it was during the heat waves, and they could smell it, and that's how they found him. And so I'm really interested in this. I want to put this together. I live in a mobile home park, and I really want to put this together. Thank you.
Oh, great, great.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Wow.
I'm glad.
I'm part of a group organizing tomorrow, actually, a celebration of life for somebody who is terminally ill.
Great.
And he had signed up with Hospice of the Bay. And just to share this information, they have funding available for a last wish. So it was his last wish to have this party of 40 at a
Oh,
rented space with a caterer. And they were able to put some money towards that. So
Oh,
it's a-
wonderful.
It's a good resource.
yeah. Well, hospice does provide some of these things, but with, when it isn't an end-of-life situation, where it's just like a health crisis,
Sorry, I missed that.
those things are not in place at all. And so it's a world of difference between what you get when you just have a health crisis versus what you get when you're on hospice, which is, thank God for hospice. Yeah, anyone else with comments on that?
There's also the village movement, which is taking over the country. There's a San Rafael village, there's all kinds of villages here, and there's a Novato village, there's all
What
kinds.
is it?
And it's volunteers who do run errands for people, who, you know, take them to the doctor, do various things. It's terminal illness isn't necessary,
Uh-huh.
but it's a paid service, you pay. The
Ah.
volunteers volunteer, but the people pay for the service. And then there's an office that
That
coordinates.
keeps the organizers working.
Yes, it keeps.
So it's the core, yeah, I see
There are
what you're saying.
employees
Oh, okay,
that
so
work
it's
for
like,
it, and it's nationwide, and it's becoming more popular, but you have to have money to pay for this.
how much
And
does
you're not
it
talking-
cost?
I was involved with Ashby Village in Berkeley, and they were paying like $400 a year for membership to have people
Very little.
do things for them.
Huh,
But the point is that you're talking about something that is free, right? There's no money involved.
right,
Yeah.
right, yeah, so, well, I mean, I'm glad to have more options. You know, the
And
more
400
options, the better, you know? So, that's great,
But the village movement is nationwide and it's catching on, but it costs money.
okay, all right, great. All right, so, the next speaker that I want to share about is Cinda Rushton. And her official title is that she is a bioethicist and palliative care specialist. And her talk was on being able to work through the conflicts related to decision-making at end of life. What has happened is that with hospice, it's kind of thrown a monkey wrench into our medical system, because everybody was on board with, okay, we just prolong life, that's all we do. We focus on treatments up the wazoo to the end of life. And then with hospice coming in a few decades ago, there was a whole new concept about how to treat people or not treat people, as the case is. But what happened is that these two systems started to really conflict with one another. One example being the administration of morphine, because morphine can at times, when administered right at the end, can help the patient to ease off into death. And that was a situation that occurred for me in my relationship with my mother. She was terminally ill, living with me. The doctor had directed me to up the morphine. And what happened is I then thought, oh my God, am I killing my mother? And yeah.
I mean, okay, I'm empathizing with the feeling, and I'm saying, yes, you were.
I'm checking.
That's right, I felt you check.
All right, yeah, and so, you know, this was something that played on my mind and added to the conflict over the last days. And another thing that added to my conflict was that my mother, with the taboo of death, and you know, you don't talk about it. My uncle had cancer, and the idea was to never tell him he had cancer. It was just never spoken of. And so with my mother, it was like, no, I don't want to talk about it. You know, I'm no goodbyes, nothing.
Wow.
And so I wanted to honor my mother's wishes, but by honoring my mother's wishes, I did a disservice to myself. And when you have this type of what they call moral residue, which is Cinda Rushton's term, it can really drive you crazy. You know, you can agonize over this type of thing for a long time. And for me, it was a couple of years where I agonized over, God, if I had just been there with her longer, maybe I would have had a chance to have that goodbye that I never really had. And so it was painful. And so what this ethicist person was doing in the talk was trying to help us with these kinds of conflicts through looking at values that we hold, to do a re-examination of our values and to see how that matches up against some of the questions, the challenging questions. Should I remove the breathing tube or not? These types of things. Think Terry Schiavo, think Dr. Kevorkian. Fortunately, in California, we just passed the Right to Die legislation. It was just signed by Governor Brown. And thankfully, some of these conflicts, we won't have to deal with it. My friend Joan went up to Sacramento to lobby to get the Right to Die legislation. I had a girlfriend who had terminal brain cancer, and she also had metastasized cancer, and she didn't want to deal with the pain. So some years back, she contracted with an angel of death to have them come and provide her the medications in the plastic bag. I was not able to be with my friend during this passage, and it was painful. I would have liked to have had a different kind of goodbye with my friend. So, so the whole question of values, I don't know about you, I go to a lot of workshops and they've said to me, oh, you know, you should, you know, do a values process. And I'm going, values process, what is a values process? And the closest thing that it comes to is the NVC needs process, where you take a look at the needs that aren't being met in certain situations, or the needs that are being met. And so what I'd like to do is to lead you all through a quick little guided meditation, where what we're going to do is with this guided meditation, your values, what's important to you, is going to be revealed through the guided meditation. And so the first meditation is going to be for your ideal vision of your death. So I'd like you all to put your legs, or put your feet down on the floor and cross your arms and and I know you're all meditators, so you know how to do this. Go through your process. Take a few deep breaths. Make a sound, letting go. Anything that's keeping you away from your center. Relax your shoulders, your neck. Breathe into your belly. And now imagine that you are going into an experience where you are watching yourself move into your final stages. Your final stages being, say, a week before you die. Who is around you? Is anyone around you? Where are you? What is happening? This is your ideal vision. You can have it the way you want it. Notice how your body is feeling. Notice any thoughts going through your head. What would make it easier? Are you feeling spacious? What would make it easier so you could feel more spacious? Can you be curious, noticing? Okay. I'll shake that off. We're going to change to something a little different. A vision where things didn't go as planned. What would be your worst case scenario? This also helps you, and I'm not just being brutal and nasty. This actually helps you understand your values and what's important to you by looking at it a different way. By knowing what you don't want to have happen. And of course, we don't have control. But worst case scenario. Breathe into that. What is happening? Who is there? Where are you? How is your body feeling? Are you contracted? Are there thoughts going through? Are the thoughts judging? Okay. So, shake that off.
Should we share with somebody next to us?
Yeah, we can do that. What I also want to do is hand out some needs, inventories. And you might have to share with somebody. Okay, and you could pass that. Is there more than one? Okay. Okay, I have more. Okay, so pick somebody next to you that you want to share with. Are there extras? Can you pass that back? Yes, thank you. So take a couple of minutes to share with one another what values you have for your ideal death vision. And what values?
Values on here? I don't know.
These are needs. Excuse me, these are needs, but they're also values.
Sorry. So I'll make sure we do it. Yeah, it feels like
Because in the worst case scenario, my over years,
Again, finishing up in the next minute. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Hello. All right. So I'm sorry that we didn't have more time, but I hope that this will inspire you to continue the conversation regarding what your values are, and note that they change. Your values will change depending on the situation, depending on how much time has elapsed, and it's good to really stay in touch with your values because they will inform your decisions. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm going to be sharing about what appears to happen physiologically at around the time of death, and also options that we have. And how many people here have seen the short presentation that I presented on hypothermia in near-death situations? Raise your hand high. Okay, so not very many people saw that. So I may extend it a little bit more, and I have YouTubes that are very powerful. I want you to know that I was shocked when Alan Hugenot told me that when the brain is flatlining, you're not dead. And that actually the process of death in the brain can go 4 to 8 hours. And that, we have to start changing our definitions of death, okay? And I also have a little bit about what happens in a terminal coma presented by Betsy MacGregor, which I may try to fit in. But I wanted to say that when I discovered that, and when I learned that you're not really dead, when someone shines a flashlight in your eyes and your eyes don't constrict, normally seen as brainstem death, when your heart is not beating, and when no oxygen's going to your brain, and your EEG is flatlining, you're not dead. So, that, when I was with my mother, and she made a very distinct thing that she didn't want to be resuscitated. And when I became aware of the good times people can have when they're in a coma, and how they can be resuscitated even after months, there was a part of me internally that felt a sense of torture about, were we doing the right thing about giving the morphine and to reduce air hunger and the Valium to reduce death anxiety. And I just felt crazed inside of myself. Is my mother going to be robbed of these exotic, wonderful near-death experiences that people tell stories about at Sunrise Center when they die all of a sudden? All right?
Yeah, that's exactly what you did.
I was worried about it, and so I ran right away to a conference, and I went around and asked every single physician, what would you do? And it was interesting. They had different responses. Betsy MacGregor had asked the Dalai Lama, when you have morphine, are you robbing the person? Sometimes asking for a spirit, and I'd get sort of lightweight little messages. But I had an experience where she came to the side, my left side, put her arm around me, her spiritual arm around my waist, and told me in her words that how we helped her die was just fine. Oh. And then I started crying, and I noticed my sister is crying right now, I'm sorry. But I started crying, and I thanked her over and over and over again, and I was at my altar. And because it was totally unexpected, I believed it. I believed it more the other things. And then another time when I reached out to her shortly after she died, I do want to say, and this has shown up in the sort of new kind of grief therapy that is being offered now, is that when I reached out to her and I said, look, I'm just going to call you to me. I'm missing you so deeply. Come to me. And I felt her come to me in kind of a nice body, and I could see her visually, and I asked her, how she was, whether she was painting yet, because she's talked about painting in the afterlife. She said she was enjoying her new body. I noticed my grief went really down. And what Jamie Turndorf is bringing forward is that traditional Western grief therapy usually leaves people worse than they were before. And in traditional grief therapy, what you do is you learn to say goodbye, the goodbye you didn't have. You finish with your unfinished business with whoever it was who died. You share the feelings, and then you say goodbye, because focusing on this is considering being obsessive, an obsessive grief disorder. And then if you don't have to take an antidepressant, you shift on to new parts of your life, okay? And this has been shown to be very destructive, actually. And what is shown to be really profound is is certain counselors developing mediumistic abilities and tuning into the spirit of someone who passed when someone in grief therapy comes to them. And that's what happened with Jamie Turndorf, who was the daughter of Jewish atheists and was an atheist even when she was married to her husband of 27 years. So anyway, I will go into that later. But first of all, for any of you who've had sort of a scientific perspective, I want to show you this video of Pim Van Lommel, which I may stop occasionally, and I want you to see the level of depth in this man. He's about 75 years old. He's a retired cardiologist. He started studying near-death experiences at about 43, 45. He's been heavily attacked and criticized, but recently with the latest information that's come out about the brain, we are beginning to see and can put forward very scientifically that the brain is not dead right away. And actually, I'll tell you two other things that are kind of shocking from Sam Parnia, who's another physician who studies this, and Alan was the one who brought me into the books The Racing Death by Sam Parnia and Consciousness Beyond Life by Pim Van Lommel, is that you can take cells from a brain of a cadaver and grow cell cultures of brain cells even 8 days after they're dead. You can take cells from the heart of a dead person and grow it 22 days after they're dead. So what is death? And also, the other issue that comes up is when we looked at our previous definitions of brain death, and then we have organ donation, do you want to enhance the speed of your death by donating your organs? Okay, so these are just all sorts of interesting questions, because the organ donors come quickly if you're brain dead, you know. Certainly for some people, I mean, especially if you're, you know, probably less than 50. So with that, let's see. I think that, well, actually, I'll ask a question because I'm dealing with timing. How many people would like to see physicians talking about hypothermia and extending the brain?
For how many minutes?
That was about 12 minutes.
Okay.
Is there a
I don't
choice?
know,
Why don't you tell what all the
or how
stories-
many of you, or we'll go directly into Pim Van Lommel?
Let's do both, just put them.
Both, all right. Okay, so this is the one that says Newsweek.
Okay, I'm gonna start with Pim Van. Yeah.
No, with Newsweek. It's not in order.
Okay, yeah, this is the one that's named Pim.
That's the one I don't want you to do. I want you to do Newsweek,
Okay,
hypothermia.
that,
Therapeutic hypothermia,
Okay.
that's right.
Are you talking about this cooling system?
Yeah, yeah, you know, and because I was thinking from the level of, okay, I'm in a terrible auto accident, okay, I'm unconscious, you know, what do we do? But you see, you can keep the brain alive 4 to 8 hours or more if you cool it.
With no
And
breathing
you
and
can-
no circulation.
Yeah, no breathing and no circulation, you can return it back. And what happens, originally, they were defibrillating people, getting the heart started, but there was all this risk of brain death, and that was because they were loading on the oxygen at high levels. Because they thought, oh, brain cells die with lack of oxygen, let's jam it on right here. But actually, our brain cells go into a state of hibernation when there isn't enough oxygen. And then very slowly, if you introduce oxygen very slowly, the brain can return. So,
And this is also the basis of what's called a standstill operation, where they have to do brain surgery. They'll cool the body way, way down, they'll drain all the fluids, all the blood out of the body, and they can operate on the brain. Then they will put the fluids back in, and almost always the heart will then start up by itself.
oh, wow.
And,
Yeah.
you know, this, you may know of the Pam Reynolds case, this was
Yeah.
one of the
Pam Reynolds is early on, and
Yeah.
we're way down the road from it now, but they do, read Erasing Death, 2013 book by.
Because Pam had a
And-
huge NDE as well.
And let me,
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
she
let me
had
say
Indian.
about Pam Reynolds a little bit. So I talked to Pam about it, and she was operated on vertically so that there would be not any blood in her head. Her eyes were taped shut with bandages, okay? They operated on her brain, and she saw herself above her surgeons operating on her. She saw them trying to start her heart again at a certain point. And I think it was her, she saw where the surgeon took out her dentures and put it in the second drawer down. And I mean, this is remarkable. And so this begins to bring forward what is consciousness, you know.
They were going click, click, click in her ear at about 90 decibels, and she heard everything they said.
Wow.
Okay?
She
I
also,
didn't
she
know that.
also knew that the bone saw was creating a high C tone, because she was a musician.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So she couldn't possibly have heard that through her ears,
Yeah.
click, click, click at 90 decibels. She couldn't possibly have seen it with her eyes, and she saw it all, and she heard it all. So she was obviously out of body, snooping around the room.
So to me, this is very exciting. So with that, I'd like to switch gears, and thank you, Dan and Alan, for adding some additional details. And you can find this in Erasing Death. It's also referred to in the book Life Beyond, Consciousness Beyond Life by Pim Van Lommel. But now I'd like you to see some of who Pim Van Lommel is, and we'll probably go through most of it. It's The Mystery of Perception. It's physicians, scientists, a whole variety of people who belong to the Skeptical Inquirer and all that, have reported and written books on how the NDE is a result of the anoxic brain. You know, when you reduce oxygen to the brain, somebody can get kind of high, having these visions. They do it with jet pilots, but the level of depth in the NDE, even Alexander first pointed this out, the level of depth and psychological depth in the NDE is not experienced with these pilots, okay? But then Pim Van Lommel brings out a really important point. Everybody here was anoxic, all right? 18% only had this NDE that they remembered. So if only 18% have an NDE that they remember, then the other section, equally anoxic, didn't have it, all right? And so the anoxia theory, you might as well just toss it in the toilet, you know, because it's no longer valid.
They'd
And
all
it's
have to
proven by
have an
these
NDE.
studies.
Yeah. If it was true, they'd all have to have an NDE.
Right. Because the brain wouldn't have done, now you could say, well, maybe they didn't remember it, but it's, you know, they just experienced a kind of blankness, and those people don't have a reduction of their fear of death after cardiac arrest. So maybe we can program ourselves to have an NDE if we have, if we have something.
Once it's not a frightening NDE.
Well, Alan can speak to that, and I've been interested in that. And Alan,
They're very rare.
why don't you say it so everybody can hear?
They're
You
rather,
asked about a frightening NDE, which is centered.
they're rather rare. Aviv is a doctor who's over in Fresno, and he had a near-death experience. He started out as a negative, or what we call a frightening near-death experience. And as he progressed on through it, it turned into a positive near-death experience. And what we attribute this to is your own thoughts and planning and what you think's going to happen and all of that. And as you work into it, you realize that, well, this isn't what I thought. And that's what happened to him. And so, although we have a few, what we call negative near-death experiences, it appears that they move on and become a positive experience if they last long enough. If they're superficial and short, they may come back and say, oh no, it's hell over there, I don't wanna go there, and actually be afraid. But they're like one person in 1,000 that's gonna have that out of all the ones we've worked through. I'm on the board for the International Association for Near-Death Studies, if some of you don't know that. So we look at all this stuff all the time. And those people who have the negative experience, if it lasts long enough, becomes a positive experience, and that's what we've discovered.
And you know, so perhaps we can re-educate ourselves about NDEs, and if we're caught in a car accident and are unconscious and appear to be dying, we might be going through the Tibetan bardos, you know, and then going to something more positive. Or, like Ellie Chamber, an atheist teaching in Berkeley, you know, she also lectures in Trust too and presents, you know, was an atheist teaching that Nietzsche's view that God is dead, and when she floated above her body after her car accident, she said, oh my God, I'm wrong. So, you know, there are many possibilities here.
Now, some of you also know I work with Mediumship, and I got one answer back a while back, and I don't want to tell the whole story right now. I just want to say a person said, thank you for telling me that I wouldn't be dead when I'm dead, because it saved me so much time on this side. Mm-hmm. There's a whole story to that, but I just want to say that message. I told her, you won't be dead when you're dead. She died. She came back through a medium that didn't know me and told me, thank you, with all kinds of evidence. Mm-hmm. And so this is why we're doing this. You can actually change your opinion before you go, and so when you arrive in death, thinking, well, when you're dead, and I'm not dead, so I guess I'm not dead. Okay? Or you can arrive there saying, oh, he told me I won't be dead when I'm dead, so I'm really dead, but I'm really here, okay. And it saves so much time, that's the point.
Okay, so why don't we continue? I just wanted to bring out that important point.
This is why we talk all this stuff, though.
Thank you.
It
Yeah.
changes
So-
our arrival.
From the cardiac arrest.
TACI are located at Harvard and MIT. And they are a central locus of what's known as materialism. They interviewed scientists that found that 20% of scientists had a connection with a religious or a spiritual belief. That meant the other 80% don't. Now, out of the scientists that were interviewed, the ones that were in the 20% were physicists, people who had studied quantum physics and other kinds of things. The lowest degree of belief in a religion or spirituality came from psychologists and biologists. Now, you may wonder about that, but that is because, I mean, Freud really, he took a very analytical perspective towards our lives and towards fear of death and thanatos, as he called it. And biologists really rely on what they can see, hear, feel, taste, and touch, okay? And so we have an opportunity to expand, and as I said, this man, after he came out, they pulled his journal articles, there were very active attacks on this man, and you can see the level of his maturity and how he responds, because he was already attacked by the time he presented this. Okay.
When you say attack, what was most?
Well, where they pull
Criticize.
journal articles, they call him a fraud, they, you know, and I mean, his level of thinking, in my view, and the number of physicians that were cooperating with it, the statistics, and Sam Parnia added a whole nother, something called the AWARE study, where they're coming up with the same kinds of information with 2,300 people. So, you know, this is something I would want to respect. So,
The
what
problem
do
is,
you want to say?
I just want to say what the problem is most people in academia are invested in what they've been studying.
Right.
And they put 30 years into their projects. And all of a sudden, we come along with this other concept. And it takes everything they've spent their life on and throws it in the trash. So they can't possibly agree. because everything they've been studying and creating is suddenly obsolete.
What-
The
Dan?
irony of that is that none of this negates what they do know legitimately in their own realm.
Yeah.
It just adds to it, and they don't get that.
No, it just, but they don't get that. They see that taking out their
Yeah.
purpose. Taking it out.
So I'd like to mention something. So has anyone heard of ketamine hydrochloride? It's also known as Ketoject or Ketalar. They stopped using that with human subjects. It used to be an anesthesia. It's still used with animal subjects, but it's because of these same experiences that he's talking about as near-death experiences, that people that were receiving the anesthesia all reported the same kind of experience, floating above their body, seeing the surgeons.
I don't think you ever did.
I can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Ketamine.
So basically, I'm just relating that anesthesiologists that use ketamine heard these kind of stories also from patients, and they withdrew the use of ketamine with human subjects because they were accurately describing their surgeries and floating above their bodies. And so it started being used in research areas. And if you're interested in reading about that, you can read Dr. John Lilly. He
Okay,
wrote a
thank
lot of
you.
reports about that.
Yeah, so gradually, some doctors and nurses are being educated about these other new possibilities, and I'm glad about it. But it's slow, very slow.
Well, that's
And-
why, I just need to add, that's why one of the great things that's happening that's making more people into believers is when a scientist themselves, even one as scientific, if you will, left frontal lobe is Allen, but the famous ones, the one in Jackson Hole, the woman,
Mary Neal.
Mary Neal, and then the famous one wrote the book that we just listened to.
Even Alexander.
Right.
Alexander.
See, if a scientist, him or herself, who once only used the left frontal lobe, then had an NDE, and most importantly also, is able to come fully back, fully recovered, not just stay so brain injured that, you just feel empathy for them, but you don't believe their experience. The fact that they fully recovered and they once were only left frontal lobe, and now they're saying, this did happen to me, and they're looking for ways to describe it, is making a huge positive impact on our belief, on what we believe compared to what we used to feel. Thought that was worth noticing.
Yeah, even Alexander, right?
Yeah, and, it's amazing.
And he's also been very attacked
Mm-hmm.
and seen as, that he was not really a good physician, that he is now capitalizing, because a number of these people, like Ajita Burjani and even Alexander, they write these best-selling books, then they're on television, and everything. And Ajita Burjani, by the way, had a healing from fourth-stage lymphoma within about 6 weeks. And she was told that she would heal when she was in this out-of-body experience, and she was told she created it because she was dedicating her life to pleasing others and not paying attention to her own needs. So that's why she wrote the book Dying to Be Me. So, anyway, so we have enough time, according to, our plan. We can move directly into looking at the mediumship kind of thing. I wanted you to see this Pim Van Lommel thing, because I don't know if Gary Schwartz's thing is even needed, because he
Yes,
shows so much data about how consciousness is against the brain,
Yeah,
but
I'd
whatever
still
you.
like to see Gary, because I want to talk about Gary, so
Good,
let's
okay.
put him on.
And there's another one that I did, which was the trailer of the movie. 8 minutes. It doesn't have Gary talking at length.
Well, let's try that one. Whichever
Okay.
one you
So
want.
I wanted
don't
to
just
mention
want Gary on for a minute.
one other thing that I think we have the time. I'd like to show just a little bit from a woman named Betsy MacGregor. And she's, do you have it there? Do you see it there?
I don't see it, Betsy
It
MacGregor.
is there.
You can point it out to me if you'd like.
It is,
I'd like to, is there a chance we can just go do some more presentations and then just save some more videos for the end?
no, but,
No?
I'm not seeing
Otherwise,
it,
let's
so
go
I
for,
guess I can.
let's go for Gary Schwartz.
Just put Gary on, then I'll talk about
Okay, all right. And this is somebody that Alan's working very closely with.
It may be the ultimate unresolved mystery of human life.
Most of you know who I am, but I'll say a couple of things. I'm a member of the IAMS board, the International Association for Near-Death Studies. I'm a member of the Academy of Spiritual and Consciousness Studies board. I have a doctorate in mechanical engineering, and I'm a medium. Okay? So how did all that happen? I had a near-death experience way back when, 45 years ago, and this is many years later, and I now work as a medium. I started studying mediumship 10 years ago. I worked with Dr. Schwartz. I've worked with Dr. Radin and Dr. Dean Radin and Dr. Arnold DeLorme up at the Noetic Society in Petaluma. They've wired me up and they've done all kinds of experiments on my head, measured what I'm doing when I'm doing mediumship. I'm working with Dr. Schwartz. I'll be with him and his wife Rhonda, who's also a medium. From the 6th to the 9th, we'll spend 4 days together. We're doing some very deep mediumship work on a project we're doing called the Soul Phone, if you've heard about the Soul Phone. The Soul Phone, we're at the stage right now where we have a box, and there's a camera in the box, a $40,000 camera that can record light from very faint stars way out there. It's in the box. The box is enclosed. The camera's on all the time. And Gary will put up on the screen, on a computer screen, he'll put up a message, and then he'll go home and a random generator will decide, okay, we want Harry, or we want Susie, or we want Michael. All of these people are deceased. They're out there on the other side. We want Susie to show up at 2:22 in the morning and make 3 blips in the box. So it's wired up to the computer, nobody's in the lab. At 2:22 in the morning, Susie shows up and makes 3 lights in the box, and they get recorded. We can say, Harry, show up at 1 o'clock and give us 2 blips. Harry will show up at 1 o'clock and give us 2 blips.
So you live at,
We leave it on the computer screen, and the computer random
as a note?
generates the time, random generates who it will be, and random generates how many marks.
How do you know who it is?
Well, we can't prove who it is. So, who is it? It might be.
So it's 3.
Okay, we proved everything except who it is. Okay, now, she wants to know, how do we know who it is? We talked to them.
Didn't Gary create a code for each of the
Yeah, he
entities?
can create a code if he wants, but what he does is, we know that it's them that showed up because we talk to them all the time. If you understand mediumship at all, we talk to the other side. Now, here I am, Dr. Hugenot here is telling you, we talk to the other side. Okay? He's been studying mediumship for 30 years. I've been studying it for 10. I started out 10 years ago as a scientist, deciding because I had a near-death experience, I've been to the other side, I believe it's over there, it's easy for me to believe they're over there. Okay? People who don't believe that they're over there have a hard time with this.
I don't have a hard time with it. I'm just a person. I can believe
Okay,
they're over there.
That's fine.
Yeah,
We
but
don't
I-
need to argue,
yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Because I don't have a lot of time. So, anyway, we study this stuff. And where are we going with the soul phone? Okay, we have what I was just showing you there. It doesn't matter who said it. We can get Morse code back and forth across right now. We're going to bring you shortly a text phone. Okay, you can get on the text phone, and if you believe, it will probably work. If you're a skeptic, well, you won't even turn on the phone. Okay, but you can get on the phone, and you can call up Grandma. Now, this is Helen. I talk to her all the time. Okay, you'll be able to get on the phone and call up your grandma, or your grandpa, or your brother, or whoever it is that's deceased, and text back and forth. So you're going to see that shortly. Now, if you think about this, let's go back 20 years. Did you think you'd ever see one of these? Way beyond your wildest dreams, right? Okay, but what is it we're going to bring you? A text phone between here and there. After the text phone, we'll bring you some more stuff you're just going to love, but let's just get to the text phone for right now. The rest of it's almost top secret at the moment. where are we getting this? We're not inventing it. We weren't ready for it in 1906 when they first started talking about it. I wasn't here in 1906. But I've read some books where they were talking about it. Who's they? Not us. Not on this side, on that side. Okay? We have a few phrases. The below team and the above team, A team, B team. Okay, we're the B team. And they're giving us how to do this. And we're doing it. Our technology wasn't ready for it in 1906. We just had the radio since 1902. I mean, you know, we weren't ready. Now we're ready. We're going to move forward with the electronics that we have, and you'll have a cell phone. That's what we're working on. It takes people that are on both sides of the fence. Okay, you got to be a physicist who understands it, and you got to be a medium. Okay. If you follow what I'm saying, most people in science say, I don't care what you're talking about, as you've heard Pim Van Lommel and Gary. They say, I don't care what you're talking about, it's garbage. But once you believe, once you understand, you can start doing stuff. Mediumship, talking to the other side, every one of you can do it. Every one of you thinks I can't do it. Okay? Until you open up. And you're thinking, well, I can't do that. Yes, you can. And that's what it takes. Helen, I'll put her up there again. Helen talks to me 24/7. I never met this lady. She died before I married her daughter. I married her daughter 5 years after she died. And she started coming through to me 3 years ago, and now she won't leave me alone.
There are no problems.
Yeah, she's always there. She's you know, I'm over at Arthur Findlay College where there's nothing but mediums, and she'll be there every time. And I had to tell her, Helen, just back off a little bit. Just let my grandmother and my father and other people come through. And so she went away for 3 days, probably in a little huff. And then she came back. She would come, you know, we do 60, 70 readings in a week there with each other at that school. And she would come through 5 out of 8 readings, the first 8, and I had to just tell her, stop it. So, but Helen's always there. She's always talking to me. You can talk to the other side. It's not my imagination. So on the 24th, I'm talking to Helen, and I email Rhonda, Gary's wife, and she says, yeah, she was here. You heard her when at 3 a.m.? I heard her at 3:30. And I said, yeah, but she came back at 4:30 and woke me up again. So she was here, she was over there, she was back again. She got Helen. Now, she knows that I have Helen, but this lady came through and then identified herself as Helen to Rhonda. And she started by talking to Rhonda's mother, who Rhonda talks to. This kind of stuff goes on
Did
all
you
the...
mention this woman, Helen, to her?
Yeah, she knew who Helen was. And she thought her name was Harriet. And Helen said, no, it's not Harriet, it's Helen. And then she told me. So this is the kind of thing we're doing. We call it cross correspondence. We do it all the time. Suzanne, whom you've all met, Suzanne Giesman, she gets messages now from Helen. We're all going, it gets really mixed up after a while. And it's not us imagining it, because it occurs at the same time across the country. And this is the kind of stuff we're studying in mediumship. A lot of people think, well, you mediums are all crazy. And if you think so, come down to Golden Gate Spiritualist Church when I'm acting as a medium down there. I do it about once a month. I always seem to pull names through. It's not me pulling the names through, it's Spirit giving me the names. I was there Wednesday night. One of the people sitting there, and I said, your mother's grandmother's sister, so your grand aunt, her name is Flo or Florence, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, Florence Becker started the church, Alan, why are you thinking Florence? And the lady says, yup, we call her Flo. That is my grand aunt, or great aunt, whichever you want to call them. Where does that stuff come from? I'm sitting there thinking, Alan, you're thinking Florence because Florence is here in the church. No, I'm thinking Florence because Helen is telling me the name Florence. And so I say Florence. Happens all the time. Some of you have seen me do it here with pull a name through. Tomorrow, we're going to have a seance right here, and we'll be doing that kind of thing, just for fun. I work with Gary, so I'm trying to give you both sides of who we are, the kinds of scientists that we are. We've looked at Pim Van Lommel. He's a pretty strict scientist, you know, really, really strict scientist. And yet Pim says he's convinced, having never had a near-death experience, that the afterlife is real. It comes to him from his patients and study of his patients. With me, it was easy to believe the other side, having had a near-death experience. I could believe it, and so I went there. What we're doing is going to blow your minds over the next 10 years, and I just want to share that with you. Gary and a whole bunch of other scientists are moving in this direction. He talked about the manifesto of post-materialist science. There's about 60 or 70 scientists now signed up on that manifesto. There was 5 of them who put it together. And that's where we're going. So what I want to say about Gary, what he presented at the convention, what he always presents is the business about the soul phone now. It's become almost an obsession. His newest book is about synchronicities. If you haven't seen the book, it's called Super Mind, and it's about synchronicities. And with typical scientific boringness, he goes on and on and on with the synchronicities. It's a really good book. He's a great writer, but he keeps giving another example, and another example, and another example, because he spends all his time checking synchronicities and how they come up. He takes pictures of them. He's into a lot of that. Anyway, I think that's all I wanted to report on, because I don't want to spend a lot of time. I just wanted to tell you, you're going to have your, if we have a soul phone, the fraud medium, the one who tells you a story and charges you a lot of money, will be out of business. Okay? It'll also put some of us other mediums who aren't frauds mostly out of business too. But I don't make any money as a medium, so it's not, doesn't bother me a lot. Okay? Do you have any questions about what Gary's doing and what I'm up to?
Yes.
Yeah.
Apparently, according to the Vedas, when somebody departs, they spend a very short, quote, time on the other side, and they come back into another body.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I've heard explanations of this, but I'd like to hear what you've got to say. And
Okay.
so as you're talking to somebody who's on the other side, over long periods of time, what's going on?
Well, if the Vedas are true, since they're something that was written by man here on this side, and we know that the Vedas and the Bible and the Quran can't all agree with each other, okay, we have lots of scriptures, then if that's true, then they don't spend a long time over there. If that's not true, then they do spend some time over there. We're not sure, and we don't have science for that. But one way to look at it, which I find is very convenient, is this one. The person that you know is an aspect of consciousness. And people ask the question, well, what if my love that I just wanted to see, that died before me, went back and reincarnated in a new body and won't be there when I get on the other side? How am I going to get to see them? Here's the fact. The aspect that you're looking for will be there, and that consciousness that went on and became another person will have moved on, but the aspect that you know will still be there. We have this restrictive viewpoint that each of us is an individual, and we're going down, swimming with all the other fish. Well, guess what? Maybe you're several different individuals, and maybe we have people with memories of past lives, and we have an awful lot of people who remember being the same person. We think, well, how could they all be the same person? Maybe they're all aspects of that same person.
Cleopatra.
Cleopatra, yeah, Napoleon, you know, your wife's Cleopatra and you're Napoleon, okay? You guys, and, okay, by the way, here's my fee, thank you, okay? And they pocket the money and tell you that you were Cleopatra and Napoleon. But let's suppose that's not all fraud, and let's suppose that some of them actually do have memories of being the same person, and yet they're different people now. How do we know how it works over there?
What time and space doesn't exist.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah, how do we know how it works?
Right.
We don't know how it works. There appears to be some space. It's 2 times I've had a problem with Helen traveling while she was talking to me, needing to go somewhere, and she's gone, and she's come back. So they do have a space of some kind, okay, and a time of some kind. Because, like I just said about Rhonda, she was talking to me at 3, Helen went to talk to Rhonda at 3:30, she's back talking to me at 4:30. When her brother was, 3 days before her brother died, she had to leave me at 1:30 in the morning and go and see her brother. She was doing one of those visitations before they die, where you see the relatives and they're there. And then she came back and continued talking to me. And she said, literally, I gotta go. 3 days later, John died, you know. So, I've been through this thing where they seem to have to use some time to travel and actually go a distance. So what is the other side like? I got to spend a couple of minutes over there, let's say. You know, how long was I over there? I was in a coma for 12 hours, but I saw the light for how long? You know? And so I didn't take a naturalization program and do 5 years and become a citizen and study the place. So I don't know. I've been there, it's real. I talk to people who are over there. When I ask Helen, so what's it like? She says, you know, I can't tell you.
What was it like for you?
Well, I know what it was like for me, but that's a whole other story, and I'm not telling that one tonight. I'm supposed to talk about Gary. I do that sometimes. I come here and tell that whole story. But it was, just to give you a short little snippet, it was a wonderful place. I never wanted to come back, and I got the message, you have to go back. I said, no, this is cool, I'm staying. And I had to go back. And that was 45 years ago. And what the message I received is, just a little while, you can come back here. 45 years later, I'm still waiting. That's my point. That's what it was like. It's the most wonderful place I've ever been. I was home. I can go on and on, but it's not, we don't have time for that. Okay, any more questions? Someone else had one. Maybe they got an answer. Oh, yeah.
When they talk to you, do you hear them? You hear them?
No,
How do you?
I'm clairsentient. I feel them. I sense them. It's very hard to explain. Like I said, I got the name Florence, okay? For some reason, Helen's making me think about Florence Becker, and so then I think, well, Alan, you're thinking that up. But I go ahead and say it, and the lady says, yes, her name's Florence. I just feel, and I get an intuition, and I don't hear it, I don't see it, and I just feel it, and then I have it. When Helen's talking to me, I'm writing. I'm just writing, okay? It's not automatic writing. It comes through me, I think, and I write the sentence, but Helen's writing the writing. It's not always Helen. Sometimes she brings through other people by name, and I write down what they're saying. And that's what we're doing to get the downloads that we're getting from the other side to build our phone. And those people will tell me things. And so it's called impressional writing. That's the best way I can describe it. It's not, Helen's working on automatic writing. She can move my fingers. She's not doing this. I'm just showing what she can do. But when we get to it, it'll become automatic writing. It's like learning concert piano. To get to where you can do these things, you have to open up your soul and let them run it. And that takes an awful lot of trust and belief that you're going to have the person you think you're going to have running your hand and not something else or some other spirit. So we're 10 years in, she can move my fingers, and we're going to get to automatic writing. We're going there. If we get the soul phone with a text on it, what do we need with automatic writing anymore?
Can Siri do it?
Can Siri do it for me? Well, that would be nice. I think we should ask. Yeah, maybe recruit Siri as a medium.
If Steve Jobs wishes he was still here, he could.
Oh, well, he possibly will be.
He might, yeah,
He might be,
Steve
yeah.
might come back, but
He's worked on the cell phone.
he's
Yeah,
gotta,
that's right.
he's gotta stop saying things like, hey, your cell phone's a piece of shit. I mean, that's what the type he'd say to people, you know? So, he's gotta stop that before we're gonna talk to him. Any other questions? Yeah.
I'm not sure what this is called, but I've experienced it many times. I have been a chaplain for almost 50 years, and I used to work in the AIDS hospices in San Francisco and a religious science practitioner for almost 20. And I am with people when they are dying, and then I go home and I don't know if they'll be there the next day or not. But I have this thing where I go to sleep. I could be sitting in a chair or something, and I picture them dying, and it's hard to explain, but they leave their body and I'm with them. And I go where they are going and I'm with them, and it's beautiful, and I'm speaking to them. And it's so wonderful because I had a near-death experience as a quite young child, and then another one after a car accident about 25 years ago. And I'm with them, and I wake up and I go, oh my gosh, they must be gone. And then I will get a call and I'll ask, what happened? But when this is happening, I physically see what happens. And I was with somebody who I had this glorious dream with him, and I would be in this wonderful space, and then I would see him in his chair grasping his heart. Then I would be up there again, and I would see him on the ambulance on the hospital, and then I'd be up there again, and I would see the flat line. And then I float this long distance back through the roof of my home into myself. And then I get the call, and I find out that it happened at the same time. I have never really said that to anyone out loud because it sounds so strange, but it happens many, many times.
You're really doing it. October 14th, Luis Minero put on a new interview, and it's a really good one, and he will answer some of your questions. So go on YouTube, Luis, Luis Minero, F-I-A-C. He's the out-of-body guy. Luis, M-I-N-E-R-O, and go on YouTube and plug for myself. I'm on the video too, but that's just Anthony stole some stuff off of our other video and put it on with, and Dean's on there too, Dean Raven, but with that interview. And it's really good. That's why I know about it. It's because Anthony sent it to me, he said, look at that. And, so go on there. He talks about being out of body and how all that works. He's a totally out-of-body guy, not a near-death guy, and not a medium, and he's been doing this for a long time. And that's Luis Minero. He's a really good friend, and what you're doing is astral travel, and you're going with them, and we all do it when we're asleep, but we don't know that. We think we're having a dream, but because of your connection, your heartfelt, heart-to-heart connection, they call you and take you with them, and that's what's going on. And it's not crazy, it's very real. We have a whole lot of science behind it, but mainstream science says, oh, that couldn't be. Yes, it very much could.
One last quick thing is, I had a friend who was dying, and I had this dream that we were in this great place, and she looked 30. She was older, and she was very crippled, and she just looked so wonderful, and we're there together, and she sees this person, and I said, oh, it looks like an angel. She goes, well, just my luck, it'll be an angel. I'm trying to find a man. I was planning on taking her to Italy. But she comes back, and we have this experience, and she leaves, and I called her the next day, and I tell her about this dream, and she goes, well, you're in that darn new religion, some freak thing, Jane, you're gonna go to hell, and I'm telling my minister, never come to my church when I die. So a few days later, she's very ill in the hospital, and I'm teaching, and I don't get the message, but it goes to my girlfriend, who is also a physician, and she's just really kind of mean sometimes. She would say, I need a sedative, I need this, and because she had lung cancer, they said, no, we'll give you something else, stay with us. And then she told her the dream I had and how I'd lost my mind, and all of a sudden she said, please hold the phone, because she was speaking to her other best friend, who is a physician, and she says, the lights are beautiful, they're opening the door. And she could hear her speaking to someone, but she couldn't hear them, and her last words were, call Janie and tell her she was right.
Wow, how beautiful.
Okay, so you gotta cut off the
Yeah,
question.
but that's
move on,
still
yeah.
good, thank you.
Because, someone else?
I don't know how many people could hear what you were saying because you were talking a little softly this way, and,
As the lady
Lori,
died,
we have 2 more people to present.
Yeah,
We really
we have
need to
2 more
move
people.
on.
As the lady died, she overheard her saying, "Go tell Janie, it's beautiful, she was right." And that's, okay. But we gotta move on to the other two.
Yeah.
Otherwise we'll be here till 11, we don't wanna do that.
Yeah, so I'm actually presenting on Jamie Turndorf next, as I mentioned to you.
Well, you set the time
No,
frame,
it's not
yeah.
one person each,
Yeah.
it's, I've got it, and we'll, so anyway, it's Jamie Turndorf, not Mark Anthony.
Are you wanting a movie? Why don't you let Phil and I present, and then why don't you save that for the end? We haven't given us any time.
Well, all right, take 10 minutes with it, but this is his,
Yeah, we're in the last.
his movie. No, because Jamie Turndorf is very important, and that's
we're
agreed
in the-
upon
we're
and
in the last.
presented.
We're already 10 minutes over, and we have.
You know
time for
what,
Phil
we're not
to
10 minutes over, it was readjusted to 10:30, Ed. So I don't want to argue, and I'm in control.
The web's first relationship advice site and host of Ask Us.
Encourage people to become more quiet with meditation, to do breath counting, visualizing the place of relaxation, heightening, being open to hearing somebody come through. She's also following the guidance that she got from Jean, she was already an animal communicator actually, and she was very good with laying on of hands type healing, and she she teaches people how to look for signs. For example, she has a particular connection with birds, and there was a bird that kept on trying to get through the window to her house, and she tuned in, and this was a message from Jean, because Jean, she shared birds a great deal, and then she heard a message from him, and she actually met her next partner after she started waking up to messages from him. Well, she goes through a whole different set of different signs that you can recognize that somebody is trying to communicate from the other side. You know, feelings in your body, lights turning on mysteriously, dripping faucets magically stopping dripping, finding coins that were minted in the year that she was married, landing in her boot. You know, just different kinds of signs. And specters, creaking floorboards, it goes on, and she teaches people to be open to looking at this. But the thing that was really dramatic for me was, and unfortunately I forgot my book, but was reading accounts of people who now come to see her as a therapist who tunes into, on a medium level, to the person who died. You know, so you have a grieving person coming to see her. The person, she's a clinical psychologist, she has full skills in the ordinary way, and she's opened up, she used to be seen as Dr. Love and write a radio show with Hay House and all of this. So she's gone past that, and now her career has exploded in training people to you know, to tune into their loved ones and deepen their connection. And she definitely believes that everybody can become a medium. And she wrote she also works with people who do automatic writing or recording conversations you have with somebody, also suggests organizing and conducting a seance, a variety of different approaches, and that's all in her book. And I kind of used this, not reading her book, I just decided to really try to contact my mother, and when she came to me I felt a great relief. And being that I was a skeptic, I just said, well, I noticed Susan Geisman, she trusts her imagination, and some of these other people do. Well, I'm just going to imagine it. Okay, Mother, come to me, please. I'm missing you so badly. And I felt her come, you know, very vividly right away. And then you also were affirming, I was saying, I don't know if it's my imagination, but, you know, she seems to have come, and then you were affirming that it wasn't, and
use our
that
imagination.
mediums have to try to decipher between their imagination and other things. So I've been going with it, and I, as a therapist, used to have people share their emotions towards some parent that had died if they didn't like what the parent did, but it had nothing to do with tuning into the parent's spirit and or becoming a medium and helping that person hear a response from the parent. And so what she has case upon case upon case in her book about times where she's tuned into some spirit, come in with some signs that are recognizable, and the person who's trying to clear with their beloved or their parent that's deceased totally breaks down. And all of a sudden, the whole healing becomes very, very real. And the movement in the relationship and the way that the person moves in their life becomes much bigger. So I think this offers a lot of possibilities. Now, I mean, I have a degree in psychology, and you know, as a Gestalt therapist, I would have people share with their dead parent, and then we'd say, well, they're probably hearing it up there, you know, but this is a whole other level. And I'm really happy because it made a big difference in how I experienced my mother and passing, and you know, it's doing it for others. And there's another guy named Dr. Alan Botkin who's working with Vietnam vets or other vets, and where they contact the souls of some of the people that they themselves go into a hypnotic state, and then they get to reach out to the person who died, who they regret having killed. And they hear generally that the other person is actually having a good time on the other side. And there's this huge healing in their own guilt.
What Alan Botkin's doing is standard therapy now, and a lot of people who are not involved in all of this are using the therapy.
Mhm.
And it's very big in Europe. It's a little not so big here because we're a little slower.
Okay.
But
So
that's beautiful, and you're going to be doing some of that. I can see that coming.
Okay.
Yeah. You're getting your therapy together, and you're getting your PhD, and you're going in that direction.
Yeah.
And you're going to be using some of that.
Yeah, okay, well, thank you.
It's just a prediction. I don't do predictions.
All right, we'll see.
But
But
I
I
see it
just want to
coming.
say, and I offer that, and I'm offering to suggest that to you, Wendy, with some of your skills, how useful you could be to people. So with that, if Phil and or Ed would like to come up and do the last little bit. Stepping up, and there's that little video. So you wanted to show that this person was very grounded, is that right? Do you have any other further comments?
Yeah, I do. Anyway, this guy's name is Mark Anthony, and he's a lawyer. He's been a psychic since he's been 3 years old, and he's like the third or fourth generation. His whole family's psychic, and he's like the third or fourth generation. And I had the pleasure of hanging out with him in the bar in Phoenix, and this guy is he's exactly what I think the world needs right now. He's he's a great achiever. He's a wonderful performer. His integrity level to me is impeccable, and he's able to open people up to possibilities by actually demonstrating. And I want to talk a little bit about myself in relationship to this, because I came back from Vietnam as a kid, and I was, after 6 years in the military, pretty broken, and I was gone. And somehow or other, I connected with a guy named Jose Silva when he was first starting out, and he kind of took me under his wing, and I became one of the first instructors in the country. So what we did in that work is we taught people to do psychic readings from a distance and get immediate feedback. And if you couldn't do that, you get your money back. And while I was with the organization, we trained about 10 million people. So,
I was one.
yeah.
That was another.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm kind of one of the, I had a lot of influence in that world. And actually, I mean, in 1972, we had a convention, civil mind control convention in Washington, D.C. at the Sheraton Hotel. And we had 17,000 people who all had been successfully doing psychic readings. So for me, it's like it opens people up to new possibilities, and that's what my life is about: self-empowerment and helping people to realize that there's so much more to us than we can know just by living in the consensus and listening to what we're getting. You know, and I don't want to convince anybody that there is more or you are more. You have to come up with that yourself by looking at the circumstances of life.
Were you going to show the video?
Yeah, I'm going to show you. So, I'm kind of a teacher, and actually I'm the head of a master NLP practitioner, and I'm the head of an organization where a hypnotherapy training organization based in London, where we've trained over 1 million people with our work, and we have over 100,000 active members. So my life is about helping people all over the world exponentially start to open up, you know, so maybe someone can have that positive grain of thought that tilts the scales to a more positive future. So anyway, Mark, so the reason I'm saying all that is because
Right there, up through, yeah.
this guy Mark Anthony and so many other of these incredible mediums that I've been experiencing at these meetings that we've been going, Lori and I have been going to, I'm just blown open, even with all my own experiences. And I myself have had, over the years, I've had amazing experiences. I go out of my body on a regular basis, and I'm a long-time meditator. So Mark Anthony is the one that opens people up to possibilities, and then they find all the incredible trainers so they can open themselves up. And the reason I like these near-death experiences, why they're so important, is I think that if people realize that there might be more to their life than just this life, maybe if they're not afraid of death, they won't be afraid of living. So anyway, this is just a short interview with him, but this is the quality of people that we're seeing at these meetings, and it's very inspiring. So I hope you enjoy it.
Right now, we have a 1 in a million.
Okay. So, we arrived at 10:30, but do you want to say some things about yourself?
Well, you haven't really left me any time, but yeah, I still have a presentation. So first I want to put this person up. I'm wondering if anyone knows who Deborah Anapol is?
Yes.
Anyway, she is a friend of mine that, yeah, I'm going to move up to the front. So I'll go over this slide in just a second. Basically, I had the experience this summer of having my friend who I've been connected with for about 15 years invite me to go to Europe, and at the end of a 3-week trip where I watched her being recognized as a teacher through basically through her work as the pelvic heart integration training workshop we did in Ireland. And this was the second teaching module of a plan that she had to do for these teaching modules. And then I watched her go through the Osho Lila Tantra and Consciousness Festival near Stonehenge in England, and be presenting her classes on polyamory and being really well received, presenting her classes on pelvic heart integration, having over 100 people just really get what she's doing, and then seeing her present a workshop with another friend of hers called The Potent Elder and the Juicy Crone. And all along the way, I saw her being affirmed by all these different people. I saw people coming up to her and just seeing her for who she was. So I was seeing this person go through what looked like to me a real fulfilling period of her life. She was 63, she seemed really vibrant, she seemed to be totally healthy. She seemed to be totally on top of her game, and she was getting all these accolades and everything. And then I left her, and just before the end of the trip, about 3 days before the end, and then as I got off the plane, I just got informed that she had just passed away in the night. Now, you saw the image I showed of her with this. That's the way that she was actually found when she passed away. So what was interesting to me was that
Can you speak up a little bit, Ed?
what was interesting to me was that the autopsy, guess what, didn't find a heart attack, didn't find a stroke, didn't find any physical evidence for why she would have died. And it just appeared like she just had decided to let go. So later on, when we analyzed it, we also heard that she had admitted that she had sleep apnea, though. And some people had analyzed the position and thought that possibly there was less blood flow or less breath flow in that position, and that she might have, if she had her arms in a different position, she might not have expired. But curiously, even though I had been intimately close with this person, and she was extremely important as a teacher in this method, I didn't feel personally sad or bad or at a loss that she had left. And looking at it later, it took me a while to unravel my feelings, but basically I'd been going through this process this summer of going to a festival called Yes to Love, being with my teacher who's holding this place of father love, going to this workshop that opened up my pelvic heart integration, opened up some of the body armoring that I had going on, and then going on into the Osho Lila Tantra and Consciousness Festival, opening up more and more. By the time I got back here after several weeks, I was really totally in my heart, and I just didn't have this feeling of loss. And I found this, for some reason, when I came back, I was aware of many, many passings. It was Lori's mom that had passed, my uncle passed, a friend of mine in the dance community passed. And this is what's sad to me, or at least in my former frame of reference, I'm actually noticing between 1 and 4 people a month leaving my life. It's up at that frequency because of the number of people that I know. But anyway, I found this really wonderful saying here. A ship sails, and I stand watching till she fades on the horizon, and someone at my side says, "She's gone." Gone where? Gone from my sight, that is all. She is just as large now as when I last saw her. Her diminished size and total loss from my sight is in me, not in her. And just at that moment, when someone at my side said, "She is gone," there are others who are watching her coming over their horizon, and other voices take up a glad shout, "There she comes!" That is what dying is, the horizon and just the limit of our sight. And so the positive news, the good news I have to report from the community of people around the Life in the Afterlife conference, and a lot of people that are looking at this issue, is that the feeling is they're just dropping this 3D body, this meat suit, but still continuing on an etheric body in another dimension, in another place of existence. So I'm going to just say that the hope is that there'll be a different form of life, and it will be in a different form of expression in another dimension, but a lot of it may look like here, except we don't have these 3D bodies. So maybe I'm going to just leave you with that, something to contemplate, that as we shuffle off this moral coil, we move on to another plane of existence.
Thank you. That's what they tell me.
Well, thank you, everybody. You've been through quite a marathon, but I'm guessing that you're walking away with powerful new information. Is that right?
Yes.
All right, great. And,
Are you going to talk about Sarah, or do you want me to?
oh, yes, I will. But I just wanted to thank everybody for sticking with it, because, it was a longer program.